This podcast is sponsored by CDO Group, the industry leader in providing a full range of construction and project management services. CDO Group has managed thousands of projects in all 50 states. Their group of experts provides systems, processes, and procedures to make sure that your projects turn over on time and on budget every single time. With over 24 years of experience, CDO Group is the industry's leader in construction management and general contracting services. To find them, go to cdogroup.com. Hi, and welcome to the Future of Development podcast. My name's Anthony Amunategui, and I'm here to inspire people to find amazing careers in the construction development world. If you like our podcast, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really like our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Hi, and welcome to the Future of Development podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Amunategui, and today I'm joined by one of the smartest guys I know. I'm so excited to have him on the show. Would you guys give me a big warm welcome for Jeremy Julian?
Yeah, Jeremy, as always, I love having you on here. Our conversations go down so many great paths. Before we get into more detail, let's back up a little bit and talk about the path that got you into the business.
Yeah. Well, the path is a long one, and I know you and I talked about it pre-show, but family business started quite frankly when I was in grade school, where the home phone, back before cell phones, would ring and it would be restaurateurs calling in about technology problems. But started my professional career actually waiting tables at some of our customers, and then it turned into working support. I looked at my first pay stub. I was making $5.25 an hour to take phone support calls back in the mid 90s, and grown up for the last 25 years, just really building customer relationships and solving technology problems, and ultimately a lot of times those end up solving operational problems and all of the other kind of things that go along with restaurants, because they're a pretty awesome area to go solve some problems for people.
Certainly, from when you were a kid starting in restaurant world, data that's getting collected nowadays is dramatically different. You know, as we watch the evolution of data collection and data processing with our customers, you know, I think one of the lines that I love is, if your restaurant isn't eating data, your guests aren't eating a thing.
Yep. Well, and I mean, it's kind of funny that you say that, because I would agree. You know, I mean, I go back to where it was electronic cash registers, where you really, you know, unless you were the same guy that was there on a Friday night to know who your guests were, to know that this person likes, you know, this kind of wine and this kind of steak and likes to sit in this booth, ultimately that really, as data has become more and more prevalent, you've got to understand who your customer is, and oftentimes the customer is giving you that data, and those brands that are doing a good job of understanding who the customer is, what it is that they want, what it is that they need, that they're anticipating their brand desires, and how they want to interact with the brand, are the ones that are really the ones that are growing. I mean, it's fantastic to watch so many brands across the world really use the data to make a customer experience better. I mean, I know all of us, at least here in the US, have the Amazon effect or the Apple effect, where they know so much about us and they really anticipate where we're at and where we're going. And there are some restaurants, ironically, that are starting to do that, where they really understand Anthony, who Anthony is, what, you know, when does he eat at certain places? How does he eat? You know, how does he like to eat when his wife's in town? Does he eat the salad? And when his wife's not in town, does he get the bone-in ribeye? Because it tastes a heck of a lot better than the chicken Caesar salad. And, you know, he knows he needs to be healthy when wife's sitting there watching, kind of thing. I mean, you and I have talked about this, but I think I think the data is such a powerful asset that way too many restaurateurs aren't exploiting to really help make a better guest experience.
For sure. You know, being able to collect that data and know that Anthony's eating the dessert when my wife's not looking.
Yes, exactly.
Knowing that I'm going to eat that dessert before Sophia catches me. And, you know, that's, you know, just knowing the preferences of the guests that you have on a repeat basis, right? Anticipating when they're hungry, where they're located. You know, we're working with a brand out on the East Coast called And Pizza, and they've done an amazing job of build a flagship store, use mobile restaurants and the third parties to make delivery, find out delivery patterns, plant a mobile truck out to where the new location is, right? They kind of plant a flag, use third party data, figure out where the patterns are, put another mobile truck out there, make that delivery time faster, like the market. Now they plant another flag, and they have certainly used that to their advantage. You know, first time I've ever seen brands do a much smarter way of using this third-party data that's coming around. I know that's a big deal. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, and again, you and I talked a little bit about this pre-show. Is again, all of these third-party delivery companies own so much of the customer. I mean, we talked about it; they own the customer. There was just some recent legislation, and I have no idea when this podcast will go live, but there was some recent legislation in New York where the third-party data companies, the DoorDashes and Grubhubs, have to share some of that data with the customers because it's incredibly powerful. A lot of brands are doing exactly what you're talking about, or they'll put a ghost kitchen in a market. They'll put a ghost kitchen and so it might be a brick and mortar, physical location, not a food truck, but they'll put one of these in a market to see. One of our customers, the guys from Torchy's Tacos down in Austin, just put a ghost kitchen up in Ohio to see if that was a market that was going to resonate well with that region prior to putting a brick and mortar store, because a brick and mortar store might be $1.5 million to build out all in, but now, and it's a fast casual brand out of Austin, whereas a ghost kitchen might be half that cost or even less. And so now your investment to get into a market is significantly less. One of the other things that actually is early on the data continuum is really, what are customers eating? If you're not looking at, everybody's watched, whether it's Bar Rescue or, all of the Gordon Ramsay come into these places. Oftentimes these chefs fall in love with their food items that they're trying to sell, or brands fall in love with these food items, and they're trying to cater to the 1% that this crabby old lady wants her grilled cheese with mustard on it. And if I take grilled cheese off the menu, I'm going to lose that crabby old lady. But the truth is the data really is how you need to make your business decisions. And way too many restaurateurs, in my opinion, end up serving their guests based on emotion and based on some legacy, some thought that says the grilled cheese has to stay on the menu because we get 5 orders a week of it. And ultimately, a lot of times that ends up hindering their capability to grow, to be able to modify their food offering, to be able to modify their brand image. We've all been to those brands that are tired, that never really use the data to grow beyond. What are the food trends? How are people engaging with your brand? I'm certain another thing that we talk about is we've got these brands that are really lunch brands. You live in a major metro area, you've got these lunch brands that during the pandemic, it killed some of these lunch brands because you were no longer going into the office and hitting the salad shop, hitting the sandwich shop on your way to and from the office. Starbucks just released their earnings call the other day, and they had a huge pivot, from last year to this year, trying to understand how consumers are going to engage with your brand. But how do I look at that same brand that is engaged for that sandwich deal and turn it into something that's going to be able to serve those same families that are in the high-rise downtown and have a take-and-go meal that's healthy and is for the soccer mom that's driving back from the soccer practice that can go pick it up, that doesn't look the same as their menu that's at lunchtime? Because again, we all know, but I think way too few restaurateurs are using this data to make better business decisions, to understand how to serve their guests. How much better does that look when now I can engage with that brand a second time during the week, because I'm not just getting a sandwich at lunch with my buddies when I run out for my 30-minute lunch or my 1-hour lunch. I'm now also getting a full, 3-course or 5-course meal at night for my family for dinner that looks very different. And that's some of the early data that people used, but there's geo data. Where are these people physically coming from? Tie it into the credit card data to understand who this consumer is. What is their spend patterns? Grabbing loyalty data. What do they often order? Do they always order the ribeye, or do they order the ribeye some days and are they on a ketogenic diet? Are they on are they doing different things that now, and way too often, whether it's through social media, through your credit card, or through even what the guests will give you, they will give you the data that says, how do I serve you? And unfortunately, way too few people are serving them the way that they need to get served.
It's for sure. We do something for one brand where we actually sit out and poll the guest. We have people that sit out in front of the restaurant and poll them. It's amazing how much information guests want to give you.
Mm-hmm.
They're excited about your brand. They want you to know more about it. They want you to know, hey, I come here because I work down here, and every time I come down to this market, I go to your restaurant. And I love it, but I live an hour away. I'd love one in our market. Look, if you could, I know a perfect location in my market for it. I can't tell you how many times that we'll do one of these surveys, and we'll understand where the customer's coming from, right? And this is, as we're looking backwards, the last couple of years, Now we can start to identify where the customer's coming from. Are they coming from home? Is it that soccer mom? Is it a group of employees? Is it some nurses at a restaurant, at a hospital, or are they kids coming from a soccer game? And start to identify, so that now I can take that data, instead of having to market to 100% of the people. Now I can target market that 3% of the people that fit that genre or that location, or understand their pattern. Right? Look, the soccer moms are going to leave here and go this way. If I can catch them in time,
Yep.
here's where I should be hitting that little coupon.
We were just talking with one of our business partners that had a customer that was coming in. He was coming in. He worked in a medical office, and he was coming in and buying food for these doctors on a regular basis. And he would come in and spend $1,000 every week. He was coming in and buying $1,000 worth of food from this one brand. And at the end of the day, they figured out that this was the same customer that was coming in with his family once a month. And it was the same guy that was, somebody's assistant or somebody's something. Actually, it was a pharmaceutical rep. I was talking to this customer that does this data for this loyalty. It was a pharmaceutical rep that was buying for these doctors once a week. He'd buy $1,000 worth of food for this doctor's office. They were able to tie together just by his spend patterns and the last four of his credit card number, that this was the same guy that was coming in with his family. Well, knowing that he was getting the pharmaceutical rep stuff was getting paid for by the pharmaceutical company, they ended up offering him, loyalty status on the personal side, and they increased his frequency from once a month to once a week because they were trying to understand, how do I get this guy back here more often? But that same customer who was coming in for dinner once a month, but coming in once a week for this pharmaceutical rep, didn't exist to them. They were two distinct customers because the restaurant didn't recognize him because he was coming in two different meal periods, and it just never ended up resonating with them the same way that it might now that they can see that data. And I'm sure you've heard the story, and if you haven't on the data side, this is not restaurants necessarily, but you've heard the story, and if you haven't, it's always an interesting one, where Target was sending stuff for a young lady that had a baby to her home. She was still living at home with her parents. And unfortunately, based on her spend patterns, she was buying pregnancy tests and buying all of these different things and hadn't told her family that she was pregnant yet. She knew she was pregnant, but hadn't told her family that she was pregnant. Well, I think it was Target, it was the brand. They sent her diapers and wipes and coupons for these different things. And her parents are like, why are all of this stuff showing up? Well, I forgot to tell you, I'm pregnant and I'm going to be having a baby in 9 months. So from the data perspective, it's amazing what the spend patterns you can do. And so while that's a little bit creepy, I think way too often as consumers, we're giving this data because we want that experience. We don't want them to have a vanilla experience. We all say we don't want anybody to have our data, but the truth is when they don't know who we are, it feels and sounds so depersonalized. Everybody's watched the old sitcom Cheers, where everybody knows your name. I'm certain all of our patterns look very similar, where you're going into the same restaurant brands because they know who you are. They know who Anthony is. They feel good about Anthony, know what's going on with him. And I think way too often we forego those things and the data, being able to use that data to make a better experience. And again, one last thing, and I'm sorry, I know I kind of go off on these tangents,
It's great.
But the last piece I would say is, without the data, with the amount of staffing problems that we've had, with the amount of turnover that we've had through this pandemic, without the data, that same host that was sitting there 18 months ago when COVID started and could name every single high net worth customer in your fine dining steakhouse by name, didn't work for 18 months. So she might not have come back, or he might not have come back. So how do I create that same experience where Anthony's walking in, and on the futuristic side, his phone checks in with a beacon so that when he walks up, hi, I see it's your anniversary, Anthony. We have a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne sitting at the table for you, and the appetizer will be fired as soon as we seat you, because we know that you like the crab cakes, and think about what that experience looks like versus you walking in, them going, hi, can I take your phone number, or can I take your name? And now it turns into a very different experience for you because, again, everybody's looking for that guest experience.
I think that's the thing that's the most surprising, is that, as we look at the data, I don't think we can tell where this is going to go. Just like when cars were invented, we could not have imagined Uber. right?
Mhm.
You could imagine you could hit this little your phone in your hand and a car would come to you. That was not in the realm of possibility then. And I think that same thing is happening today as we look at the data, right? And I go across our company, I look at across and go, look, data, 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 data. And people I think are almost tired of me sometimes going, data? Is this a waste of time? I go, no, you don't understand. That you can't see it today. But what we're working on is stuff that we can't see. And just getting the practice of us managing the data that we collect. How do we do this stuff? Getting consistent about the data that we collect. Knowing how our projects go, where our projects are happening, how they're happening. Same thing for our restaurateurs. As we look at that data, it's going to change the way that we pick locations, the way that we do the build outs for those locations. There's a brand that we're working with right now that's got they're doing pretty basic build outs in the restaurant, but they're using 36 digital cameras to project in the restaurant to change the environmental experience. Right? Their idea is that you'll be greeted by a virtual assistant they'll meet you at the front door and guide you via a virtual assistant through these cameras to your seat. And you'll be able to tell where you're sitting and what you're doing. They'll change the environment via the day, via the menu, and keep it, think about how intriguing that'd be to walk in every single time. And we're always looking for the new restaurant. What happens if the old restaurant you go to is new every time you go there?
Yep. Well, and I think again, based on data-driven decisions, it happens to us every single day. We live in a world where Google and Amazon and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all these people are collecting data to be able to market to us, to be able to sell us stuff, to be able to create a better experience. The credit card companies have done it for 40 years. They've known exactly who we are, and they know exactly what our spend patterns are. And everybody that has a credit card that's on this, that's listening to this podcast, they get a once a year, once every 6 months, an email from the credit card company. What's your new address? What's your new annual income? And you know what? Amazingly, I just signed up for a loyalty account just yesterday for something. They asked for my birthday. Well, because my birthday, the last four of my credit card, and my physical address or my zip code tie me to, in my zip code, there's probably very few people that have my birth date and my physical, zip code and the last four of my credit card. There's 0% that anybody else is somebody other than me. And so they can tell me. I mean, I was at a meeting a few months ago, and I think I told you this, Anthony, where somebody from one of those large credit card companies would come in and say, you know what, let me talk to these 26 demographics. So they had 26 different profiles. There's the hipster that wants to live downtown, that wants to live in a high rise above a coffee house that's going to spend $7 for a cup of coffee. There's the soccer mom. They have all these demographics, and it's based on psychographics. It's based on, and they can predict to within a 99% accuracy who's going to buy what, when, and where based on those demographics. And so we challenged this guy because it was a bunch of CEOs in a meeting room. We said, okay, go pick somebody in the room and go figure out who this person is. And just by the last four of his credit card and his zip code through TransUnion or whoever it was, Experian, whoever this guy worked for, he was able to do a data search and say, you make about this amount of money, you've got 2 kids, you have a wife, you live in a house that's built in this year, you go to these 4 restaurants on a regular basis, your spend patterns are this, and this, all without him even knowing in like 5 minutes. And the guy's like, how did you know all of this stuff about me? He's like, because you gave it to me. And I have it all. How much more powerful if a restaurant brand knew who those people were, could they now challenge and change that behavior to serve the guests that they want to serve the guest that's going to provide them the most profitable guest experience, to serve that guest that's going to end up coming back for more frequency? How do they get that repeat customer to come back in? How do they know when they had a bad experience? How do I know all too often that Anthony comes to this place once a week and now he hasn't been back for a month to go back and get Anthony back? Maybe Anthony's on vacation in Paris. Maybe Anthony got really pissed off because his salad was terrible the last time he went, and he's not going to ever come back. How do I know that? The only way you know that is by putting data at the center of what it is that you do, because you can't do it manually. There is absolutely no way you can do it manually. You know what? If you're serving 100 covers a night and you're the host and you're at Gibson Steakhouse is small, whatever. I get Gibson's is huge, but like, if you were at the steakhouse and you knew every customer that was coming in, you know what, you might be able to recognize, oh, hey, Anthony, you've been coming here for 20 years and they know you and they come and have a glass of wine with you, all of that kind of stuff. And everybody loves that experience. But you know what? That's not scalable. That can't go beyond one or two restaurants. You can't make a ton of money doing that, especially in today's day and age. And so I look at the brands, Panera Bread, Starbucks, McDonald's, all of these big brands are not only launching loyalty, they're not only, they have a loyalty, they have the credit card data, they're going to be ahead when all of these other brands, they're coming into a knife fight with a gun because the guys that don't have that or haven't invested in it or haven't understood the power of it aren't going to be able to compete in the 21st century as things continue to go on.
And I think that's what's happening right now. You're seeing that. The guys that are doing that today, right? Even though they're fumbling, they're trying to figure out shake their head, try to figure it out. You're going to see that spread between the the companies who have, the companies who have not, and you're going to see that it's going to be at some point you're not going to be able to catch up to it, right? There's a florist down in Florida that where my mother lives that every year, a few days before her birthday, I get this great little email. Hey Anthony, it's your mother's birthday. How beautiful, how big of flowers can I send her this year? And he gets me for a couple $100 every year. When I get that email, I'm so damn happy that he sends that to me. Yep. And I'm like, how big can you go? Right? Like, it's my mom. Go big, make her cry. I want you to walk up to the door. If she doesn't cry, then I didn't go big enough. So I got to tell you, mom, who loves flowers. So that's the difference, right? Right there. Hey, it's your son's birthday. You want to take him to Gibson? My son and I love going to Gibson's, right? Get that email as a reminder, or set a reservation. Hey, we set a reservation for you and your son to be here on your birthday. Is this time work for you in your schedule, or should I make a movement?
But you look at that now. Think about what that guest experience was. Hey, last year you guys got the ribeye, but you fill out the guest survey that said it was a little underdone. I'm going to make sure that it's perfect this time for you. And now if the host walked up and said, hey, I know last year we really messed up and your appetizer didn't show up on time. Anthony, I'm going to make sure it's right so that your kid has the best experience that he can ever have to do that. You're going to be a loyal customer until they screw it up the next time. But how different does that experience look versus, again, just over the weekend, I was out shopping and I shopped at a local place because the guy knew who I was. He understood what I was looking for. It was humans sell to humans. But again, the data to be able to help them make better business decisions, to enhance those experiences, is huge. And without it, you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back, and it's tough.
There's a part that's hard. You got the mom and pop shop compete with Gibson's. Right? You got if you look down the street over here where I live, I've got a great guy who has got a pizzeria over here, and every Tuesday he does $5 pizzas. And that blows the door off, right? His margins are really tight, but he gets a lot of guests pumping through there. And I said to him, "Are you collecting the data?"
Yep.
Right. So the rest of the week you're communicating with them, right? Are you all through COVID? He did a great job. He put these little notes in there. Hey, thanks for supporting. You mean that you and your family are making a difference for me and my family, and you can feel and pull the heartstrings of the neighbors, right? I'd ordered an extra pizza every single time. I didn't know if we're going to eat it, but I figured out how to.
Yeah, exactly. The COVID-15 hit. It wasn't COVID-19. Well, COVID-19 pounds that you added over the 18 months.
That communication piece, and I think the little guy sometimes thinks, I just don't. He's tired. By the time he hits the pillow at night, he's like, I can barely get this. I had to work the line today. My line chef notes didn't show up. Like now I had to work the line, or last night I had to do the dishes for the dish chef, and I forget the date. I'm just trying to get through a shift with the staff I have. And I'm like, all right, where are the little things that you're doing to capture the data? And, it doesn't have to be big things. It can literally just be, hey, when you're filling out to-go orders or pickup orders, or people are coming in, the polling that you're doing, just collecting that data so that, like you said, on a small level, it doesn't have to be so ginormous. A small restaurateur can start collecting data on their local population and then start working on marketing to them in little ways. It does not have to be.
It doesn't have to be grandiose to suggest that they're driving home from soccer practice, because every Tuesday night at 6 they get off of soccer practice, and we want to make sure we get that wallet share and that stomach share. It doesn't need to be that grandiose. It very easily could be the small example that you said, but it really starts with having a point of sale at the center of it that can capture that data. So I'm tying the guest to the transaction, to the payment. Those three pieces. Who is the guest? What did they order? And how did they pay? Those three things end up making a huge difference to and having a point of sale that can serve that purpose is the first thing I would say, that you got to make sure that you have a point of sale at the center of it to capture that. And then being able to capture the guests. Almost every pizza place in America captures your phone number, or they capture your name.
That's right.
What do I do with that? What do I do with that phone number? Sign up for a texting service that you know what, every Tuesday, with Twilio, you've got, and there's millions of them out there. A lot of them don't need to cost $1 million. You can get an export from your system once a week. You upload it via a website. They make it super simple, especially people using Square and Clover and some of these, smaller end systems. They make it easy for those restaurant operators to be able to compete with the big guys. So now they're texting those customers once a week saying, hey, just remember, we've got our Tuesday special. What's going on? Come by and pick up $5 pizzas, or bring this coupon in on a Friday night and you get, $5 off of your Friday night pizza when you really want to. What does that look like? So now I'm engaged with those guests multiple times a quarter, multiple times a day, multiple times a week. So to me, it's so simple to be able to do that. It doesn't need to look like Panera. It doesn't need to look like McDonald's. It doesn't need to look like Subway, where they've got these crazy grandiose things. It can very easily be, I send a text message. Again, there's a local pizza guy that he did some of the stuff, and he was not knowing what I did. He's good, really, really good pizza operator. And through the pandemic, he knows my kids, so he lets them come back and throw pizzas in the kitchen when nobody's around. Not during COVID, but early on, he'd be like, yeah. I said, can the kids come throw a pizza? He'd like, yeah, come back here, wash your hands, kids, come throw a pizza, and I'd make them learn how to throw pizza over their head and get flour all over themselves. But he had gotten a new feature in his point of sale where he's like, no, he was all excited. He's like, you can pay from the parking lot, man, and I'll run the pizza out to you. And I'm like, that's great, Rudy. Like you're embracing technology, because he's there all the time.
That's right,
and he
that's
knows who the guests are. But he and I were just talking 2 weeks ago, and he's like, I'm opening a new store. I said, okay, Rudy, here's the deal, man. You're not going to be at that store every day. Now, how do you get beyond? He's like, sitting down with me one night. He's like, I'm killing myself. I'm here 6 nights a week. My family doesn't hardly ever see me. He's going to the next store. I'm like, I'm proud of you. I'm excited. I knew that this was your goal. Let's go figure out how to make it happen. But now he's at that second store, and I said, how are you going to make sure that you make the same guests feel like $1 million? Yeah, you got a great product, but you know what? Part of why I come here is because of you, Rudy. Rudy, I want to make sure that you're that guy, and when you're not here, I'm bummed when I show up. But how do I create that same guest experience using the data that says Jeremy always orders a large pepperoni and a large cheese pizza, an order of garlic knots, and a Caesar salad? Because that's my order every single time. He was like, I got to figure out how to do that. How do I know that I'm engaging with him that says, you know what, Jeremy hasn't ordered in 3 weeks. What's going on? How do I engage with him and says, hey, I miss you, man. I'd love to see you again. But unfortunately, you get busy running your restaurant that you don't even know that they haven't been in a while. And then you sit down one night, after you get home, you go, man, I haven't seen Jeremy in a while. But now if I don't have the data, I don't even know that. It's just something in my gut. I don't go back and go re-engage with him. I don't see, maybe he has been in, and it's been on the Wednesday nights when I'm not working that, he has been in. And so these are all of the things that I think the data allows us those opportunities to make a tremendous difference in the guest experience if we're capturing it and if we're utilizing it to make again that guest experience different.
We certainly are going to see a bunch of that great stuff. Help that poor tired operator remember all this data that we're collecting, all the influence that we're doing. We're going to see stuff that's coming out we can't even predict today, and we're just at the edges of it. And that's really exciting. You and I need to have you on this podcast again. Before you take off, do me a favor. Where can people get a hold of you? I
do host a podcast and blog called The Restaurant Technology Guys. So if you go to restauranttechnologyguys.com, tons and tons of stuff. I've got tons of guests on the podcast. Anthony will be on the podcast pretty soon, where I talk about everything related to restaurant technology. So that story comes from this guy, Mike, who's the CEO of Wisely, which is a loyalty company that does this. But these stories of how do you engage with your guests, guest experience and capturing the data and using technology is what the Restaurant Technology Guys do. It's, we do technology. You guys produce good food. Listen to the podcast, read the blog post. You'll learn a ton. Never going to ask for money, never going to sell your data out to anybody. Use it to try and help make your life better. Engage with me, Jeremy at therestauranttechnologyguys.com. You can send me an email on Twitter at RestTechGuys, on Facebook at RestTechGuys. So all of the socials, if you want to hit me up on social media, love to engage in these conversations. I can think back 3 years ago, I recorded one of our very first podcasts about where I thought the future of restaurants was going. And it was really about this, and COVID's accelerated it. My timelines were way off because of COVID, but I truly think that the device that's in your hand, your iPhone or your Android phone, will end up replacing a portion of the point of sale. I don't think all of the point of sale, because there still needs to be an engine for taxing. There still needs to be an engine to run to the kitchen. There still needs to be an engine for somebody that doesn't have a smartphone. But I think your phone is going to end up being your primary entry device to get food into the kitchen and to control that guest experience. But again, so much of the data with your phone, where you're at, how quickly you're getting there. So, sorry, I know you asked me a very simple question about how do people get a hold of me.
But Jared, think about this for those real high volume restaurants. For example, Gibson's, right? Being able to go into a Gibson's and go, look, if I'm able to have a guest order on their way in, right, to really interact with them in a way before they even get there, right? Yep. And when they sit, that we're interacting with them before they show up via their reservation. And now we're able to communicate with them. If I get that order in, let's say 10 minutes faster, I can turn that table 10 minutes faster than I did before.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Can I get one more table count throughut in
a place like Gibson's? That means almost $1 million a year if I can get 10 minutes off of every table.
That's right.
And $10 million at 30% profit is $3 million $300,000 in profit that you're missing out on by just being able to do that. And so, yes, I fully agree with that. So yes, connect with me at RestTechGuys on Twitter, Facebook, all of those socials, or go subscribe to the blog at restauranttechnologyguys.com. Again, you'll see my ugly bug up there and get to hear all of the things. But again, podcast has been going on about 3 years, have some really great guests on there, and always looking for new guests. So if any of our audience is out there and wants to be as a guest, you get to come alongside Anthony and be a guest on the podcast. I love it.
Yeah, you guys see why I like him so much? I mean, his energy is like this off air, on air. It's amazing. He's contagious, and I love it. Jeremy, thanks a lot for being on the podcast. I am so grateful.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thanks for having me on. And I look forward to doing it again.
Thanks for joining us. My name is Anthony Amunategui, always looking for people to bring insight into the industry, finding ways to inspire people to have amazing careers in the development world. If you liked our podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really liked our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Thanks again for listening. Please share it with your friends.